Hello and welcome to the Real Gary Tussey Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything that could ever amount to anything or everything to anybody and everybody who ever intends to amount to something. We'll be right back. Welcome to this edition of the Real Gary Tussey Podcast. I am your host, Gary Tussey. I'm always shouting out in the beginning of our podcast, being thankful to those who helped to make me a success. And one of those is the Kubota Equipment Company. We are one of our incorporations is Tussey Excavation. And we own Kubota Equipment, a mini excavator that is second to none, and a skid loader. We move both heaven and earth to help people establish their dreams. We bought our equipment at Central Equipment in Lexington. Our sales agent was Chad Freeman. So if you're interested in Kubota Equipment, the first thing I would do is call Tussey Excavation and let them do a little work for you. And then on a budget, you can see the performance that Kubota Equipment offers to those who know the value of being able to move terra firma. And, one thing I tell people is maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but someday and probably soon, you're going to need a man or a woman who can move the earth and pour concrete and cover things up. That would be me. You know who to call. So that's how we roll. Someday you may need that, and we'd be the person to call. All right. So welcome to the Real Gary Tussey Podcast. I am your host, Gary Tussey, and on our last podcast, we began talking about the advantage of trade school over university. How many knows a university is very expensive? How many knows why? See, that's different. I think someday we ought to talk as to why college university tuition is so expensive. It might surprise you why it is so expensive. Then you might be saying that does not have to be that expensive if we set priorities. But that's for another podcast. So on this podcast, we are talking about the advantage of trade school and trade situations and learning trades and apprenticeship. So before we do that, let me tell you why this is important to me. Of course, it's important because I am a tradesman. Not that I didn't have college and go to college, because I did, and not because I haven't pursued trade school, because I did, and not because I haven't earned money because of of those experiences, because I have. So I know what I'm talking about. But the other thing is that kind of drives me concerning this, and I will constantly be an advocate for the trades, and that is the fact that the average age of a tradesman is 58 years old. So there's all this talk about extinction of some of the natural beasts that are in the earth. Well, we are near extinction of the natural beast of the tradesman. I have in front of me right now, I'm going to talk about it for just a moment as we go on. I have here in my craftsman hands a syllabus that I've written and established. Action is the Academy of Construction Trades and Industrial Occupations Network. This is the residential practices syllabus, and it is a fact finder and not a review, but kind of documentary type situation from beginning to end of what it takes to build basically a residential structure. Commercial's a little different, industrial's different, light industrial's a little different, highway and all that is a little different. So this one is residential practices. Academy of Construction Trades and Industrial Occupations Network. You're going to be hearing more and more about that on this podcast and on our live feed, and you're going to have an opportunity to help young people find placement in craftsmanship and trades applications that maybe they weren't aware of, and a lot of people are not pursuing those opportunities only because they're not aware of those opportunities. I was thinking about it just this morning. And my day did start today at 2:30 in the morning. And so I've had a few hours to, let some things kind of get in there. But we often think about tradesmen. Well, those are the bridge builders. Those are the steel welders. Those are the residential roofers, foundation people, concrete people. Well, you know who else it is? I thought about this morning. It is also the jewelry maker. And how many do not like jewelry? I like jewelry, but, and not to sound sexist, I don't know very many women who don't like jewelry. So jewelry is an important part. As a matter of fact, one day we're just going to talk about Rolex watches. Because we need to raise awareness. I know most people don't wear Rolex watches, but sometimes we need Rolex watches are just amazing. Anyway, that's another thing. But it takes jewelers and craftsmen to put these things together. Have you ever considered what it takes to cut a diamond, to make a diamond? Because if you've not thought about this, a diamond in the rough is a rock. It's just a rock. The value of a diamond is its cut and clarity. And first of all, a jeweler, if they're a diamond cutter, before they invest their time in diamond cutting, they're inspecting the clarity of the rock itself, and if it's worth the investment of their time to invest in cutting it. So anyway, from large to small, craftsmen and women are a valuable commodity in the United States of America, actually the globe, but I care about you and where you're at, and you're seated we are podcasting worldwide, so you are valuable wherever you are. This podcast just happens to be originating from the greatest country on the planet, surrounded by the greatest people in the world who are effective and affecting people to the greater good. And that's an awesome, awesome thought every day. We're talking about trade schools as opposed to college, and not necessarily one or over the other. I am an advocate for the trade schools. I'm an advocate for the trades, period. So we are going to be leaning that way. We've talked on the last podcast about time, that you can be established in a trade in 2 years or less, whereas a bachelor's degree takes a lot more time, typically about 4 years, and a lot more money. Also, trades are in high demand, and I'm surrounded by tradesmen all the time, and every one of them, and I mean every one of them are saying, I can't get enough help. I can't get good help. I can't get anybody to stay with me. Well, these are subjects that need to be approached. The average age of a craftsman being 58 years old. That's the same as saying they're a dying breed. So someone needs to bring attention to this, and also bring awareness to the value of craftsmen and women in the day and age we live in. If you walk into it, if you stand on it, if you lean against it, if you unless it's a tree, and you have shelter because of it, or you use it as a mode of transportation, there's been craftsmen, and many of them involved, to bring that perfection to your life for you to be able to be comfortable. So we've talked about the time that it takes less time to be established, to earn as much as six figures early in your life. High demand placement because there's not a lot of us out there anymore. The other thing is money. Now listen to this: the cost of an average American, it cost an average American $127,000 to earn their bachelor's degree. That's average. And I think that's kind of low, actually. At a trade school, it costs a student an average of $33,000 to earn their degree in a trade school. Depending on what program a student goes into at a trade school, the student will have less debt. All right. We want to complain about debt for education, and when there's an alternative, do we pursue it? I'm telling you, there's an alternative. But those of you graduating high school, you may have some people graduating high school, don't know what to do, don't know what to get into. We've got to at least be more transparent, or more obvious, running the option by our young people that there is trades opportunities that are enjoyable, rewarding, and money making. So The cost of to earn a bachelor's degree averages $127,000. The average cost to earn a tradesman degree or a certifications is $33,000. The student will have less debt than will a traditional college student. Also, smaller career colleges usually have smaller classes for students. Unlike a university, you will not be sitting in large lecture halls with a bunch of strangers. You will be able to get to know each and every one of your peers, which is fun. With smaller classes, professors are able to give one-on-one attention that each student deserves. Imagine that, which is this education is basically from nursery school all the way to 12th and graduation is bankrupt of one-to-one attention, which is part of what really compromised greatness in education. Besides, who just wants to be another face in a large room? Not me. I'm reading from a dynamic, really great source online. Job experience. You are already one step ahead of the game. Not only are you getting an education at a trade school, but you are also getting a lot of hands-on training in your area of study. Students who complete their program leave the classroom with a confidence and readiness to jump straight in to the workforce. And that straight in factor is a factor that is a earning potential factor. As a matter of fact, there's a tremendous earning potential while you're in school or while you're pursuing an apprenticeship, which is something government regulations has caused apprenticeship to not be nearly as valuable as what they used to be. But I believe we the people can get that back if we act like it means something to us. No waiting. With career colleges, there are always multiple start dates for the program. You do not have to worry about missing the application deadlines. Career college has new classes beginning every 10 weeks on average. So you don't have to wait till like September. You don't have to wait till like August. You don't have to wait till like intersession in the summer. You can perpetually find start dates that are convenient to get into a trade school. Career services Career services help you get to know the faces of your career and the department that you're pursuing. There's an interaction among tradesmen that you don't find in university. And some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know how much you feel like an island after pursuing a 4-year degree, and then you are, and I know this by people telling me this, that now what I do, because I asked someone just the other day who were pursuing a degree and just about to graduate, and it was a really good degree, and I don't remember right now what it was. And I said, well, that ought to have a great jobs placement program with it. And they said, no, it doesn't. And most leading universities, after they've taken all your money to get you a degree, are suffering in finding you a place to be planted and produce. That's another challenge. So career opportunities and connections and networking is a larger priority in the trades. And the placement rate is much higher for those who apply themselves to the trades. You know, I've also heard people say, we're out of time on today's program, but I've also heard people say, well, you know, painting or carpentry or something, that's I'll do that, till something else comes along. And there's nothing wrong with that. To have that type of trade in your life is a gift that you have the entirety of your life. We're out of time on today's program. Live and let live. Be free and set free, and apply a high energy pursuit toward happiness. Tussey out.